Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I would like to discuss today how to build the activity timelines for Ext4 and XFS file system journals and how such timelines can be valuable in attack investigations. Who am I? Well, I am Minoru Kobayashi, a digital forensic investigator at IIJ, Internet Initiative Japan, and also responsible for incident response. As a member of the CSIRT, I've spoken at these conferences. And here is my agenda. I will start off by talking about the motivation of the research, followed by the structure of Ext4 and XFS journals. Based on that, I will discuss how to build timelines and infer file activities. I will also introduce to you some tools to build timelines and demo those tools. And I will share with you the methods to trace attacks from the file system journal timelines. The final topic would be the limitation of file system journal forensic and anti-forensic possibilities. Now, about the motivation of the research. In digital forensic, building a timeline from file system timestamps is one of the most common analytical approaches. But the file systems do not retain their own activity history. Only the final timestamp is retained. File systems are vulnerable to time stomping, leading timeline analysis to miss some critical activities. To deal with such shortcomings, forensic analysts can investigate file system journals, which record low-level file activity and offer a more complete view of what happened. NTFS. For NTFS, several tools are available to parse the $log file where the journals are recorded. Ext4 and XFS implement journals, but no tools are available to build timelines from them. A few tools can recover deleted files, but that's different from timeline building. For XFS, almost no forensic tools exist. This situation has persisted for nearly 20 years, ever since these file systems were integrated to the Linux kernel. In other words, Linux file system journals represent a valuable but underutilized source of evidence. File system journals as forensic artifact render following advantages. Number 1. Tampering is more difficult. A-time and M-time in inodes can be easily manipulated using commands like touch. However, tampering inode data within the journal requires preserving its structural integrity, making manipulation much harder. Number 2. Journals provide historical records, as I mentioned earlier, of file activity. Windows records timestamps for file systems and various other artifacts, but not Linux. Such records, therefore, can be quite valuable as artifacts. Number 3. Journaling is widely available across many Linux environments. Many file systems are available for Linux, but the default file system is Ext4 for Debian Ubuntu and XFS for Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Most Linux distributions are derived from them. Therefore, Ext4 or XFS file system journals are present in many Linux systems, making them valuable and accessible forensic artifacts. TSK, the sleuth kit, is one of the few tools that support Linux file system journals. TSK does include JLS and JCAT commands to read journals, but JLS is limited to just listing up the journal data, and JCAT is limited to just dumping the data. They do not interpret the data for file-level operations. Even the latest version of TSK doesn't support XFS. Previous researchers investigated either of the two file systems, but this research investigates both Ext4 and XFS journals. I've also explored methods for inferring file activity and building forensic timelines, and built a new analysis tool that implement those methods. Now, let's take a look at the structures of Ext4. Here's the disk layout. At Ext4, partition offset 0x400 contains a file system superblock, which includes the journal's node number. The default is 8. You would trace the inode table address from the block group descriptors and parse the structure of the 8th inode to obtain the journal's block number. Here is the journal layout, which starts with the journal start superblock. Journal data is recorded by transactions. A transaction begins with the descriptor block, followed by data blocks, and closes with the commit block. File system recovery uses the data in the data blocks, which I will explain in the next slide. This is an example of a data block. Ext4 records journals by blocks. Therefore, the journal's data blocks have exactly the same data with the file system blocks. The data block on this slide is a part of inode table. This data block appears to be a directory entry because there are some texts which look like file names. Next is XFS journals, starting with XFS disk layout. Partitions offset 0x0 contains the file system superblock with parameters necessary to calculate the journal's physical address. The equation, which is a bit complicated, looks like this.
Next, let's look at the structure of the journal. XFS journals are recorded together in units called log records. A log record consists of 3 types of data: a log record header, operation header, and log items. Data necessary for file system recovery is saved in log items. By the way, journal data is recorded in the host byte order. Therefore, it is necessary to prepare 2 types of parsers, little and big endian. In this slide, only the log items are color-coded. Since the XFS journal basically records only the parts where updates occurred, it can be said that the space usage efficiency of the journal is higher than that of Ext4. These log items were recorded in a file named AAAA.txt. It was created in the root directory. A single file operation does not result in a single log item being recorded. Rather, it's divided into multiple log items. The magic number representing the type of operation and the number of log operations constituting this file operation are recorded in the first log item. In this case, the data on this slide is the magic number is O by 123B, representing an inode update. Also, it consists of 3 log operations. Inode fields records the types of inode fields updated by this file operations. In this case, since the value is 3, the target of the update is the inode core and the data fork. Basic data such as files partition, timestamps, and permission recorded in the inode core. The data fork records things like the directly lists and symbolic link targets. Also, although not shown here, there's a field called attribution fork, where extended attributes are recorded. Fields without updates are not saved in the journal. Next, let's consider how to infer file activity from the data recorded in the journal. There are several ways to infer file activities. This time we adopted this method. We infer file activity by comparing two consecutive transactions and observing changed elements. For example, for inode 100, you can see the changes in UID and permission that the file was SUID'd. For inode 300, since the time has been wound back, there's a possibility of time stomping. Inode 400, since dtime was set, we consider the inode to have been deleted. Inode 200 is not recorded in transaction n+1, so no operation was performed. Inode 500, since the timestamps are all aligned, we can infer that it was newly created. Now, once file activity has been inferred for all transactions, a timeline can be constructed. Well, basically, it involves arranging the file activities in the order of the transactions. But at that time, we make sure to link the inodes with the file names. The concept is very simple, but the number of transactions is extremely large, so it is unrealistic to process them manually. For this reason, I developed a tool called FJTA to build timeline. So schematically, it's like this. So basic concept is shown. Compare preceding and succeeding transactions 2 by 2 to infer file activity between transactions. When all comparisons between transactions are finished, the series of inferred activities become a journal timeline. Now this is the overview of FJTA. It stands for Forensic Journal Timeline Analyzer. As for its function, it reads Ext4 or XFS journals from major disk image formats and generates a timeline for file activity. It can also process exported journals. The output format is NDJ is on only. It is output to the standard output. The architecture of FJTA is like this. First, it performs automatic identification of disk image and the file system. Whether parsing Ext4 or XFS, it holds inode metadata and directly entries in a common format independent of the file system. This allows the implementation of file activity inference and timeline output as standardized. Let's look at an actual use case. This is a result of running FJTA by specifying the file system offset and disk image path. Execution result is NDJ. It might be difficult to see. The output can be formatted by using the JQ command. As recorded in the action as create inode, this event indicates that the file was created on October 16, 2024. The file names are output as array in the names field. Since the Linux can use hard links, a single inode can have multiple file names. In that case, it's output like the yellow box in the center. The array is an object keyed by parent directory's inode number, allowing us to know which file name was created in which directory. I'm going into somewhat of a detail. The actions recorded in the current version includes these. The interests regarding inode information, I believe, are mostly covered. By filtering with JQ and combining it with the awk and column commands, it is possible to display only specific fields. In this slide, we're filtering for inode created or deleted after April 10th, 2025, at 10 o'clock. As I mentioned earlier, FJTA can also process exported journals. Ext4 journal can be exported with debug fs command and XFS journals with XFS log print command. However, since journals do not contain parameters necessary for analysis, such as inode size, it is necessary to obtain file system information as well. Since the journal is logically a circular structure, all data is constantly overwritten. Therefore, during incident response, it's considered best to collect the file system journal before performing operations that involve a large amount of disk access. Now, this is my opinion, but it is possible, probably best to collect artifacts in the following priority. First of all, collect the memory image, which changes most easily. Next, collect the file system journal. After that, save the data in ProcFS and TempFS, which are only stored in memory. And lastly, collect the usual file artifacts.
Now, what I would like to do is to do some demos. The assumption is that the system compromise was detected by a seam, and the timestamp is known to be October 9th, 2025, 4:47:28 seconds. This demo analyzes TSK and FJTA timeline events occurring on or after 2025, October 9th, time 4:35:00 second. Finally, the demo confirms that FJTA timeline analysis can complement TSK timeline analysis. Note that constructing timelines takes time. A pre-generated timeline is used for this demo. The TSK timeline was built with FLS and MacTime commands of TSK. Now, filtering the timeline for the events after 2025, October 9th, 4:35, looks like this. No suspicious file can be spotted. Now, FJTA timeline is built. Let's analyze the FJTA timeline. It's a recorded demo, but it shows you how the analysis is done. TSK, timeline, analysis, and alike. The file created at the set time is to be shown. So this is the time, and then create inode. The generated files are to be output. Here is a list of the files created. And there are some suspicious files observed. Panic shell, Ext4, preload, backdoor SO, LTS preload. Those look pretty suspicious. LDSO preload relates to persistence. Since we know the suspicious files, let's take a look at the events related to those 4 files. Inode numbers are to be used for identification. What sort of file operation took place can be ascertained. Panic shell and Ext4 was created at this time indicated 4:37, 36, and 46 seconds, respectively. Panic shell and Ext4's permission changed. Execution bit was added. And then after that, panic shell access happened. This is an access after the execution bit. Therefore, this must have been executed. Shortly after that, preload backdoor SO, LDSO preload were created. So panic shell is related to these 2 files. And then after that, Ext4 was executed. after that, inode was deleted. The specification was the number over here, Y1225518, which was the panic shell number as well. And after that, the next line shows that inode, which used to be that of xstump, now has a new file name. And then the action is here, reuse inode, meaning that the ext_stump was deleted, but then was recreated. In other words, ext_stump was once deleted. Now, these are the 4 suspicious files, and 2 of them had been deleted. Preload, backdoor SO, and LDSO preload did not have events after being created. Therefore, they should be there, but TSK timelines did not find them. They might have been time-stamped. Therefore, they are worth researching. Timestamp, as you can see, is something that we can add as the filtering condition. As you look at this, preload, SO, and LDSO preload was created, and after that, M timestamp is added. October 9th to October 10th, there is a rollback. Now, let's come back to the slide deck. So, as you saw, the FJTA timeline analysis reveals that a script was run, persistence was created, and time stamping was performed at the end. TSK timeline did not show them. Let's go explore how we may be able to detect other attack traces. First, detecting auth log truncation. The attack method is simple, truncating authentication logs such as auth.log or secure using echo command. The detection approach is as simple. Log files typically grow over time and shrinking is unusual. So you can just filter size down events in var log directory to find possible tampering or log truncation. Run ifind command to check the inode number of var log directory. In this sample, the number is 1048632. Next, parse the journal and filter size down events in JK with inode number of the parent directory 1048632. This is the results of the filtering. Auth.log is recorded 3 times in size down events. In other words, it was truncated 3 times. M time is the timestamp of those events. Now, let's think of data exfiltration. Attackers may create an archive file when exfiltrating important files and data from the host. After copying them to the external host, they can delete the archive file to hinder forensic analysis. The detection approach would be to filter for events related to archive files with extensions zip and rar. When archive files are created, many files will be accessed and read. So, if you filter for any events where only a time is updated, you get the list of the files that are compromised. However, if rel a time mount option is enabled, a time will be updated only once a day. Filter the events related to the file access or files with archive extensions. Our filtering results look like this. Pink events indicates access events. Yellow shows the zip file was created. Multiple files are accessed before the zip file is created. After the other files are accessed, the zip file grows larger. Blue indicates other archive files were created with other commands such as raw or tar-gz. Access events are not recorded because of rel A-time mount option. Attackers are likely to delete the archive files after copying them to external hosts. But with this type of timelines, we are able to obtain the list of compromised files and the size of the archive files, which will serve as the starting point of investigating firewall and other logs to discover the IP address of the destination. Next, I will explore the possibility of detecting a rather rare attack method, where the attackers embed bash script to a file name. As the next slide shows, suspicious file names contain specific characters such as backquotes, curly brackets, or pipes. You can apply filtering using these. The file in question is compressed with RAR. When decoded, this file is created. Opening the archive file does not trigger execution, which requires eval or script evaluation. The script has base 64 encoded, so decoding that part enables you to see the process acquiring the script from a certain host.
Now, the conditions for filtering this file name, as I said, are those containing backquotes, curly braces, and pipes. Execution of the filter results in this. Since the filter file name itself is rather long, it's obvious that it is unnatural. Files of this type are also likely to be deleted after execution, but they can be easily investigated if they remain in the journal. With journal carving tools, the target for restoration is only the file content, making it difficult to investigate data saved in the metadata, like in this case. Finally, I will introduce some how to find payloads saved in extended attributes. Attackers can save payloads in extended attributes of files and execute them. These techniques have also been confirmed on Mac OS. There's a similar technique on Windows for executing payloads from NTFS ADS. Attackers may also delete files after executing payloads. A simple detection method is to check for unusual, anomalous extended attributes values. Here we are setting a filtering condition to simply output those with extended attributes set. In this sample, files with extended attributes containing base 64 encoded data are filtered. Since changes in extended attributes are also recorded in the file system journal, this time of investigation is possible. Even if the file itself is deleted, the investigation is possible if it is still in the journal. Journal carving tools would likely find this difficult to handle. Next, I will discuss the limitations of anti-forensics of journal forensics. The first limitation of the file system journal forensics is that since the original purpose of the file system journal is recovery from a system crash, so the storage capacity allocated to is limited. Also, since the journal is a circular structure, overwriting is constantly happening, making data carving from the journal difficult. Furthermore, in partitions with high file activity, it cannot be expected that the journal will be retained for a long time. Also, the full path of an inode cannot be reconstructed from the journal. This is because only updated directory entries are recorded in the journal, making it impossible to construct the full path. The journal size mentioned earlier is proportional to the size of the partition. It is up to 1 gigabyte for Ext4 and up to approximately 2 gigabytes for XFS. Next, let's consider anti-forensics. There are two main methods this time that we have considered. One is to delete the journal. The other is to overwrite the journal. we have conducted a simple verification this time, also using criterion for success as a system operation normal operating even after anti-forensics was performed on the journal. First, we verify the method of deletion of the journal. Ext4 and SFX journals can be cleared using the Tune2 and XFS repair commands respectively, but these commands could not be executed on mounted partitions. So this has been a failure. Because we couldn't clear the journal, I tried forcefully overwriting the journal with OXOO using the DD command. The file system is Ext4. I overwrote the area excluding the journal superblock with X by OO, O by OO. The writing itself was successful, but the system hung immediately after command execution. After forced reboot, the system could not start, so we judged that this method also was a failure. I tried the same method on XFS. It appeared to be working normally after writing with DD, but the system gradually became unresponsive. Also, after forcefully clearing the file, cache errors such as the structure needs cleaning occurred when executing any command, rendering the system practically unusable. After a forced reboot, XFS mounting failed, and the system could still not be used, so this method was also judged as a failure. Finally, I considered a method to overwrite the journal by performing a large number of regular file operations. Since this method is guaranteed to succeed, in principle, no verification was performed. As a countermeasure for this technique, if logs are being obtained with audited Sysmon or Linux, traces of large number of file operations in a short time can be recorded. Also, similar traces would likely be seen from the journal when analyzed with FJTA. So I'm going into wrap up. Past file activity can be inferred from Linux file system journals. Also, by constructing timelines, suspicious activities can be identified. Journal forensics is applicable to any environment using Ext4 or XFX and can complement file system timeline analysis. And to perform these easily, FJTA can be used. That said, since the journal size is very limited, early detection of incident remains critical. That's all for my presentation.